Welcome to the 30-minute hour. It's the personal development podcast for the seven-figure entrepreneur who's looking to level up and become unstoppable. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner. Joining me as always, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all around good guy, Ted Fells.
Happy Monday.
Yes,
Happy
sir.
Monday.
It is certainly a happy Monday because today we're going to be talking about how to attract and retain top talent.
Hmm.
That's the key. I talk to entrepreneurs on a regular basis, and they're a lot of times they're telling me about all these problems they have. And I'm like, no, you don't have a lot of problems. You have one problem. You have a people problem.
Hmm.
You have a who problem. If you fix the who, that's going to make your life much easier. So we're going to talk a lot about that today about how do you attract the right people? And then more importantly, in today's climate, how do you keep them? Right? I mean, 'cause there's a lot of, they can just leave by touching their phone and, sending an email and they can get another position. So we're going to talk about that. And we have just the person to help us to facilitate that conversation. And she's definitely an expert in this field and has risen to the top of her company because of this expertise. So, Ted, I'm not going to belabor the point. Let's just get right to it.
Jump right into it.
That's right.
Just don't play around. Jump right into it.
We're going to jump right into it. Before we jump into it, though, um, don't forget for everybody that's watching us, you can also go to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and follow us and subscribe. That way you never miss an episode. But we're going to get right to it. How to attract and retain top talent. So our guest today is Lexmark's Senior Vice President and Chief People Officer. She's responsible for the global strategy to maximize the potential of the company's workforce, focusing on talent development, strategic communication, and fostering an inclusive and diverse work environment. So, a couple of things you need to know about Tonya that I haven't told you yet, Ted, and you'll love this part, Ted.
You've been holding out.
Yeah. She graduated from Hampton University, which
Home
many
by
have
the sea.
said
Home by the
the
sea.
home by the sea. Many have said that's the best place you can go, Ted. I just
Ted,
want
how
to
you feel about that? You don't. I can't tell.
As a Norfolk State Spartan,
Oh.
I mean,
Okay.
it's like,
Did you see the football score on Friday, Saturday?
no.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna bring it up, but yeah, it was
Oh,
pretty
oh, we
bad,
play,
Ted.
we played Hampton Saturday.
Yeah, you
What if-
did.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't
Okay.
good for you, but it's
It,
okay. It
it,
was a
it
good.
wasn't good.
It
Well,
was
Uh,
how not good was it? What was the score?
was it
um
37-7 somewhere?
some.
We
Yeah, I've
were,
got.
man, we were just messing around. We weren't even trying to win. We wasn't-
Y'all just playing. All right. Yeah, so she just graduated an undergrad from Hampton University, and she's a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
There
I
you
like the
go.
choice of colors. I like the choice of colors.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that makes you a Kappa or something.
That's right. That's right. I like the
My
choice of
husband's a Kappa.
colors. I like the
Yeah.
choice of colors.
Okay.
Now, them guys
All
that
right.
y'all hang around with, you know,
I
There you
understand.
go. I wore this
It's
shirt
all
today.
good.
Just
It's
wanted
all
to
yeah,
good.
hey,
All
it's
good.
all good.
talk about the right colors. All right, please join me in welcoming to the 30-minute hour, Tonya Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you for having me both. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
Welcome.
for joining us. Been looking forward to this for quite some time. And first off, congratulations to you on all your success. Because I recognize, having been around corporations and businesses for quite a while, the level of success you've had just doesn't just happen, right? I mean, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of strategy, it's a lot of focus. So I just wanted to give you a shout out just for I mean, you're an inspiration to a lot of people. So congratulations to you for your
Thank you. Thank
accomplishments.
you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and I did want to kind of paint the picture, give everybody kind of the backdrop of how you got to this point.
Okay.
I'm just curious, when you were an undergraduate at Hampton, and Hampton was beating Norfolk. You know those days. Uh,
Unbelievable.
Some
Unbelievable.
things never change. You're right. Go
right.
ahead, though.
Unbelievable. I see where this is going. I see where this is going.
No, but no, in all seriousness, though, it's like what was the vision you had for your career
Huh.
when you were on campus in those days? What were you thinking about?
Well, it's a great question, and if you look kind of at my background and what I've done, I probably wasn't thinking where I am today was not what I was thinking when I was at Hampton. I was a chemistry major at Hampton,
Mm.
and always been very a STEM person, very good math science. So as a chemistry major, I was able to get some really good internships, and one of those internships was at IBM.
Mm.
And um, probably the first time that I really worked in, well, it was the first time I worked in corporate America, and I was able to see, I guess, like the diversity of things that you do. It's not what your major is necessarily. It's kind of what projects you put on, who you're working with, who your mentors are, and those kinds of things. So I think when I went back to Hampton after my first internship, I knew I wanted like a corporate kind of role, but it was clear that whatever role I took, it wouldn't be the same. Like the role you started with wouldn't be where you finished,
Mm.
and you had to be open, you had to be trusting. I'd say you had to trust that people would guide you to some challenge you, push you, guide you to try many different things. But you had to be open to climbing not the straight up and down ladder, but going across and doing all those kinds of things. So I think my vision at Hampton grew from where I started, which was definitely something in science and math, to going out to for that first internship, coming back to Hampton, talking with my professors, and figuring out from there just that there's just lots of opportunities. Doesn't it's not so I was it was not so confining what you studied in school. It's kind of what you do with it and how you just keep growing.
Hmm, okay. And if you could go back and time travel and be a mentor to that version of yourself, like what advice would you give that younger version of yourself?
Hmm. As I said, I started out very I think I pigeonholed myself. Not that anybody made me do it, but I felt like I wanted to be the super technical person
Mhm.
because it was fun, it was easy, it was just I got a lot of satisfaction out of it. Probably I would have I could have done more, been more diverse in my even my studies at Hampton. I could have taken more a different kind. I took the electives that I was supposed to take, but anytime I could, I took just more science and math, and I think I would have been a little bit more well-rounded at the beginning. I think I had some catch up to do, and it wasn't the most impossible thing to do. But I think if a younger person of myself would have been more open to just trying different things, even at the collegiate level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and we have Michelle Jackson. She's one of your Delta sisters. She's actually my line sister. She played Gamma Iota. Shout out to Michelle who's commenting. She said that's awesome. Um, for those of you, I know we've got quite a few people that are logging on. Please comment. I know you may have some questions
Oh.
uh, for Tonya. So, I mean, it seems like though a lot of times the education system they kind of try to pigeonhole you into you take this major. Do you find that to be the case? That's kind of been my experience.
Y I'd say yes back in the day, and
Yeah.
you didn't say when I graduated from Hampton, but it was a while ago, right? So, it was 1985, if anybody listening caring. I think today it's different for kids, that are not kids, anybody that's going there's so many opportunities, there's online classes, there's so many ways to even no matter what you start, there's always this opportunity to continue to expanding and growing into something else. But I think again, I don't know that the system pigeonholed anybody. I think it was my mindset was that I had 4 years. I had to graduate in 4 years. I had to get a job, and it was just focus, focus, focus. And I think, and it was just this was the formula. This was the way to go do it. And I think now you still want to do all those things, but I think there's a lot more flexibility when people make decisions. And again, they don't really choose a major for life or a career for life. It's where you it's a starting point, and then you just kind of keep growing and weaving and figuring out what you want to do next.
For sure, for sure. So how did your
I see the
how did
comment, 1985. You look amazing.
yeah.
Isn't that one of those comments where people said you be like,
I don't
how
know.
when was it? Oh, you look
Thank
great. You
you,
look
thank you,
great. You look
Basora. Thank
great.
you,
You look
thank you.
great.
Oh man, shout out to the Deltas. I'm telling you, well, good stuff. But now, so how did your ultimate journey to Lexmark? How did that begin?
Yeah, so it's kind of a big part of the story. If when you want to talk about how to be successful, I say in corporate America is again where you start isn't even kind of where you're going. It's just an opportunity to get started. But I did start as a in an IBM up in New York, in Poughkeepsie, New York. I'm from North Carolina. I co-opted in Virginia, and when I graduated, I had some opportunities at IBM at different locations. I picked New York because I'd never been to New York. Um, that's it, just that simple. The job was good. Uh, the Lots of opportunity, a very diverse team. Um, probably the most diverse team I have ever worked on. 40 years later, is was the one that I started on in New York, and I enjoyed it, but I wanted to move back south, and so we transferred back down to Kentucky. But what I was doing up there was working in engineering and supporting manufacturing and doing a lot of quality work and doing some process improvement, and so lots of invention, those types of things. So I was using my technical background very very much. When we moved down to my husband and I moved down to Kentucky, and I didn't want to do the same job because that was an opportunity. It was just different products. But you could kind of do the same job, and I wanted to do something different. So I moved into um, another part of the company that I'd never done before, that I never worked in before, and part of that process was starting up a little bit of an entrepreneur kind of thing. So it was a new business unit that the company was going down. And the cool thing about that is that you got to do a little bit of everything because it wasn't well staffed because it was a startup. So you got to do a lot of things there. And we were sold off. The reason I'm still in Kentucky, if you remember back in the day, IBM was everywhere, all over the country. But we were sold off in 1991. It was kind of the first spinoff from IBM, and so we became a unit. A new company, and we didn't have many sites, and so we that's why I chose to stay in Kentucky, because it was just a lot of opportunity once you got over the shock of being not IBM back in those days, which was a big shock because it was, IBM was Big Blue. And but then you started thinking about the things that you didn't have to do. That it wasn't as structured, it was more entrepreneurial, it was, and this is going to sound just really, minor, but the dress code was pretty chill. I mean, IBM was very buttoned up, right? Even the dress code, everything got a little looser and lighter, and so it was just a lot more opportunity because, again, there weren't that many people. IBM was a giant company. We were very small. You got to do a lot of different things. So I went from engineering, writing patents, having a time of my life, enjoying that, to one of the biggest moves that I made, and one of the scariest ones was, well, we had a dual ladder, right? So you could be a general manager, go into general management, which meant take your knowledge, take your leadership, but you work in different areas, things that you don't have any background in. That's a big deal for a technical person because we like to know what we're talking about at all times. Not it's so, or you could go become more technical and become like a top technical talent working on the most technical problems. And I had a great mentor, and we sat down and we talked about it. And I said, I don't really understand the general management because I've always come from a place of competency, like I know exactly what I'm talking about, but I like to try it. And so that was that move. My first move out of being purely technical was in a group called, it was called Environmental Health and Safety, and we changed the name to Sustainability. but the move was, it was external facing because we were talking with regulators, we were talking with the public, and then it was also going back into the company talking to people about sustainability and those kinds of things. But it was the best. It was the scariest move for me. People were great, but I just didn't know the content. I wasn't. I was out of my element, and I think that was the biggest growth. And people say all the time, the only time you grow is outside of your comfort zone. It is really true, because you get your curiosity blossoms. You learn how to lead instead of manage because you don't know the content. You can't do the things yourself. You have to understand how to ask better questions, how to work with people. And I like to say you have to accept inadequacy,
Mm.
because when you first move outside your comfort zone, you are adding zero value. And if you say you are, you're just not honest. You're just trying to figure it out. And you get comfortable with that, knowing that you'll catch up. And you don't you can't learn that unless you do that. So you learn how to learn. I like to say once you move outside your comfort zone, you know you can do it again. It's going to be painful every single time, but you know there's a process and you know you'll figure it out.
You know,
So
it's funny. Go
Tanya,
ahead, Dad.
one question. You've been working for Lexmark. If you could share with our viewers, what does Lexmark do? You said it was
Oh,
a company that kind of came off of
absolutely.
was birthed from IBM. We
Yep.
all know IBM, right? When we
Yep.
hear Lexmark,
Gotcha.
you could
Okay,
share.
that's fair. Let me put a plug in for my company there. So
Yeah,
Lexmark,
please.
we are leading. I would say we call imaging solutions. We make printers, multifunction printers, single function printers, anything that puts marks on paper. And we
Mhm.
also have a strong IoT offering, Internet of Things. One of our big offerings is, if you think about printing, people don't want to worry about it. They just want it to happen. So
Mhm.
in addition to developing our own technology, which we own, a lot of companies do not, we have a practice called managed print services, which means um, we work with a company to understand what they print, how they print, who needs to print, and we manage it for them, so they don't have to worry about it, because nobody wants to. They want to take care of their business, and what that means is we decide how many, where they need a central printer, and people use that. And when it runs out of toner, or some people say ink, but it's toner. When they run out of toner, because it's
Mhm.
laser, when they run out of toner, we get a signal. It kind of phones home, and then we ship toner to them, so they don't have to worry about anything. If it
Mhm.
needs a new, some new what we call a drum, or new anything, fuser, anything that it needs new, we have sensors in the device that signals back to us, and then it is shipped out, as long, as part of their agreement. That's important because that's all the Internet of Things is, right? And so what we're doing, we like to say we were IoT before it was cool, right? We were doing it a long time ago. So now we have a business also that is connecting other devices similarly. For example, if there are medical devices that a medical company loses money when that device is down, now we monitor those as well. They're not printers, but it's the same technology, where that we're monitoring, the service needs, and when something is either nearing end of life or it's at end of life, we get a signal and you can send out and replace those devices. So it's the same fundamental concept, but with beyond just printing.
That's really important, because even when you talked about if devices are not available and the impact to the bottom line, it's also, if you're looking in the health space, it's an impact to lives, right? Depending on what that
Exactly.
type of a device is.
Exactly, and that's our we also sell our devices by verticals, because if you know, when I say printers, you probably think HP, Xerox, all the big guys, and we like to say we punch above our weight, because we are focused on verticals. So where we are strong is pharmacies. We have special printing applications for pharmacies. I think we have 95% of the pharmacists use Lexmark, and then we're also in retail and healthcare. We
Okay.
also have are pretty strong in healthcare. So we don't try to. We'd love to have more market share for sure, but what we try to do is focus on what we do well, and create solutions by verticals.
So when we get into these conversations, these technical conversations, I know Eric is like, "Uh oh, Ted, uh oh," because I'm starting to. That's my space, right? That's my space. You know, everything that you hear now is talking artificial intelligence.
Uh-huh.
So how does Lexmark play in that space? What are the thoughts around that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm gonna answer this as a blend between my current role, I'll bridge that gap. It's how I got into HR. But we just had an employee meeting last week, all hands meeting, and the center topic was AI, artificial
Mm,
intelligence. And so my team, the HR team, worked with the our CTO, my peer Vishal Gupta, and created a overview of like, this is what we're doing for AI. This is how we want you to use it. We don't want you to be afraid of it. We have some security around it, but really it's about everybody getting involved and figure how to use the tools that we have. And
mm,
we had a little panel that talked about how we are currently using, AI for internal and how we're using it for some of our customer
mm,
needs. And we ended it with um, an introduction to a what we call a learning journey. So we put together, we work with our outside Skillsoft is the platform that we use, our outside education online provider, to get some. There's about 3 courses, so that everybody can kind of start. Now,
mm,
if you're deep technical, we have some data scientists, and they're going to take the 3, and or they probably are. They probably won't even take it. They're already in it, but other people can. They take the first 3 and then they answer questions like, what do you do? How do you what's your current job? What are some of the challenges that you have? Do you use AI today? Do what are some of the processes that you have? And depending on those answers, AI comes in and says, how about taking these other classes, right?
mm,
So because we couldn't figure out, well, we wouldn't, how to tailor AI training for everybody because everybody's needs are different. So we wanted to do a basic, this is AI 101. And then from there, you can go as deep as you want to go. So what we're trying to do is, first of all, make sure people understand how important it is to be in the AI game, because we believe there'll be employees who either know AI or don't. It's not so much a question, will AI take your job? That's not really the question. The question is, will you be AI literate, right? And
Mhm.
that's for any job. And so we want to make sure that people view it as a career development opportunity. One of the things you mentioned, Eric, how do you keep people? People want to learn. People want more. People want money, 100%, and that's basic. It's not basic, unless you get. I mean, you want the right level of money. I'm not trying to minimize that, but the other thing people are looking at, if money is equal, am I learning? Is the company investing in me? Can I, if I choose to leave this company, and people will leave a company, am I going to take some certain skill set with me? So we see AI, Ted, as a way to make sure everybody can use it. We certainly want to be productive, use it for our productivity. That's emerging. I think it's going to help. I don't think it's going to be a giant saving in time, but it's going to definitely help people be more efficient on their roles. So we're trying to look at it as both as productivity, as well as how we use AI for some of our product development as well. And most importantly, right now, we're just trying to get everybody um, aware and in the game to use some of the tools that they have at their fingertips already for efficiency.
Are you running into any resistance with people wanting to get on board with AI or people concerned about what it's going to do for their job? What talk about that?
I think it's early. I believe people are definitely worried about, will AI take my job? It's a lot like with automation and those kinds of things. And so I think there is rightfully that natural caution about it for sure. Um, but I think people are more curious about it right now. So everybody uses Chat GPT. Everybody uses some of these other tools. So I think people are curious and experimenting more than they're afraid. Um, Undoubtedly, people are more worried about, not specific to work, but some of the things you might see on the internet where Eric isn't Eric and Ted isn't Ted, right? Those are other kind of ethical things related to AI. But I think in the workplace, it's a bit of a buzz about it. It's not that we have to push. I think people are pulling for it right now, just to understand what it is. But there's a concern about, okay, what am I? am I doing as part of my job something that may be replaced by AI? But I think right now the focus is more on curiosity and trying to figure it out.
So one other thing I'm thinking, we're talking AI, and you kind of talked about it a bit, is cybersecurity as well,
Yeah,
right? Everything
yeah,
is big on the data, and and when information is going from a notebook, laptop, whatever, and going to a printing device, right? Ensuring that that information is protected, and
yep,
especially when you're dealing in the healthcare space, right?
right.
HIPAA and all that kind of stuff. If there's anything you could share on that.
Yeah, no, well, there's a we have what we would call a security practice. So almost every whenever we engage with a customer, and this is not different from any other company, there's a series of questions that come back about your security, and we do a really good job there. Our CISO, I'll put a plug in for Mr. Brian Willett. He is on a lot of magazines and those kinds of things. He's very good at what he does, and I think he's very proactive and constantly looking ahead. But for our devices, we are we have to meet a lot of safety security protocols. There's a lot of there's a couple of ISO frameworks that we certify to. Both across our supply chain, because you want to protect the electronics that go into the devices as well. And then there's a ton of software security um, applications that we use. For example, we have something called print release. I'm gonna geek out here on Lexmark just a little bit, but when you send a print job, right, and then you use your badge to um, release it, so nothing is just sitting on the printer, right?
Mm.
It's you send it, it sits there, and if you forget to print it, it goes away. It's a way to save paper too, because some people print and never pick things up if it just printed, right? And so with print release, everybody's badge is um, tied to their person. And so when they badge in, presents on the op panel, these are your print jobs. Which ones do you want? Click, 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 and then away it goes. So that's how we try to protect people's information. But there's a ton of security protocol just within building the devices. Just because there's always a risk kind of from a supply chain perspective as well.
That's really interesting when you talk about that ability to be able to get that print job based on the badge, right? Because you don't want someone accidentally picking up your paper, right? It may not even be something
Right.
intentional. They could just go and they grab a stack of documents, and now
Yeah,
there's
and they
something.
don't even know when it's there. Yep.
And especially in the other side of what you do, as far as that HR side, right? Because it could be
Right.
someone's key information. If there's anything you want to share about that,
From the HR side, in terms of,
right?
well, I think what we do, again, from a paper perspective, would be very similar in terms of just making sure that only the documents that you want to be printed are printed, and only you are picking them up as the requester of those documents. Everything else, we work with our CISO from all of the human capital management systems, that they are there's data privacy, and that in general that they're very secure. So our our purchased um, HR system has to meet our CISO's um, requirements. So it doesn't matter what the system says; he's going to give it a once over, or twice over, or maybe 5 times over, and make sure that it's right, and that and sometimes changes, or he will request changes. I'm saying he is his team and all of that business. I'm saying he's a one person, but that organization, we can't. I mean, we don't buy any software that we don't vet with our security team.
Thank you. Wow.
Yeah, this is good stuff. This is good stuff. So this is a good time for us to kind of segue into kind of the people conversation. I mean, we've
Sure.
already started talking about a key thing if you want to retain top talent is, make sure you've got that they're learning and they're growing and they're developing. But what are some other things that people need to be thinking about as far as attracting and retaining top talent?
Yeah, the culture obviously is important, right? And I'm sure I'm not the first person to ever say that. And culture is not. I'm as you may look at my LinkedIn. I'm a year in HR. I'm new to HR, so I'm going to get probably the words wrong here. That's why I'm saying it.
No.
Culture is what you put on the walls and the vision statements and all the things that people see. They're important, but what is more important is who gets rewarded and what actually happens in the workplace. And so that's your real culture.
Mm.
It's how you work and how you interact with people. The words better be right on the walls and those kinds of things, and they usually are, and people usually believe those words. But it's important, especially with new people coming in, that they read everything on your website. Turns out they really do. They actually read it, they scrub it, they talk to a bunch of people, and then they observe and they see how people interact with each other. I think it's important to have a respect, to treat people with respect. Doesn't mean you agree with everybody all the time, but it certainly means you do it, you have your discussions in a very respectful manner. So I think people really value culture, flexibility, and that looks very different for just about everybody. And you have to have those conversations with people to understand what flexibility means to them, and then kind of what's important to them, because it's every person is different, and you can't project I can't project what I think is important on somebody else, and neither can I judge what they may think is important, right? It's like that's just what it is. So I think taking the time to really listen, engage, obviously have empathy for people, where meet them wherever they are. It's kind of the same things you would think about growing up, right? I think people look at that more than more than we would think, and they make quick decisions. They may stay a little while, but they will, um, depending on how what the culture really is. They're making decisions every day about whether to go or to stay. And we have a internal article that we run called "The Grass Is Not Greener." So what happens is people leave for whatever reason, and that's
Yeah.
okay. And then when they come back, this year we've had 15 people return, in the first half of the year, all over the world. We're a global company, and what we try to learn from them, I do. My job is like, what was no no concern about why you left. People leave for a lot of reasons. That's it. That's okay. But what did you learn? What do we do better, worse? How can we how can we learn? And almost every person said they came back for culture.
Hmm.
It was the
Wow.
culture that they came back for. So I think as you're looking at retention and those types of things, you have to pay attention to the culture that you want.
So
Yeah.
interesting. Go ahead.
We've got a couple of comments here in the comment section that I want to talk to. So first off, like, what suggestions do you have as far as how to make a younger manager comfortable with more seasoned
Seasoned
and older
employees. Yeah.
employees?
Yeah, that's a great question because we have a long so the job just before I had this one, it was called Chief Product Delivery Officer, and it was a combination of R&D and supply chain, that those two groups together. And one of the things, I heard a lot from my management team to me, was we're so concerned about vitality. We're so concerned we're going to lose these older workers. We're going to lose these seasoned workers. They're going to leave, and we won't have any. We're going to lose that technical talent. It's going to be a void. It's going to be whatever. And that's my concern. When I talk to the seasoned employees, or the people who thought that they were left behind, like, you care about more the younger people, you care about this, they would say nobody cares about us. We don't. There's not enough programs for us. There's this for this person, this for that person. So I talked to them. I said, all I hear from my management is how much they are concerned about you leaving, and all you can say is that nobody cares about you. So clearly we missed the mark. And so what we tried to do, but I understand how I could get there. So what we tried to do with the young is to, as we hired younger, or it wasn't even younger, newer people to the company, to give those seasoned people who have all this knowledge, and because of the culture, they actually want to share knowledge. That's not necessarily true everywhere, right? But they actually want the company to be successful when they're gone or whatever. So we put them. We said, you're in addition to your day job, your role is to work with these new people that are coming in, to get them up to speed faster, and to have, because I think in terms of retention, the faster you can make an employee productive, the more they're likely to stay. If you just sit them in front of a training terminal, a training monitor and say, read a bunch of manuals and those kinds of things. Yeah, okay. But if you can get them in, you got to read the manuals, of course. But we also want to put you on this project. And this, oh, by the way, this is a person that's going to help you with this. He's going to introduce you to all the people, and she's going to help you with this and that. It kind of gets them going faster. So that's one of the ways we've kind of helped blend the generational divide. The specific question there is about how to make your younger manager comfortable with seasoned employees. I think it's just to have that conversation and acknowledge the differences. Like everybody knows it. You can't, you may as well just, come on out with it and say, we're just, we're in different places. And what do you need from me? Don't, and listen, and actually don't try to tell that seasoned employee what life is all about, because you just don't know, right? But listen and try to, when I have been in that situation, I've been in that situation when I've had to manage someone older than I am, and I would just say, look, I'm not your boss. I don't probably never going to be your boss, but let's be partners in this. And because I have things to learn, maybe you have things to learn, but together we'll be better. But don't look at it like I'm your boss, but let's look at it as, we're partners in this, and we both want to be successful, and how can we can get that done.
Can you?
Yeah.
No, that's great. That's great. Can you speak a bit on how things were like prior to COVID, kind of during COVID, and now post COVID, as far as the employees and how some of the changes and things that have happened? You mentioned something early on about the dress, right? Of Lexmark being a bit more relaxed, right? Like we've seen those types of things happen during COVID, post COVID. Like it's just things are always going to be, different. So any thoughts you have around those areas?
Well, for during COVID, I was running a supply chain, which was a terrible place to be, because things were shutting down, and we had the chip crisis, and it just goes on and on and on. And I think, and we were at home, and except for the people who were actually working every day in the production areas, right? So I think one of the things everybody learned during COVID is that we can be productive in and out of the office. In fact, I think it was almost more work. People worked in certain parts of the business, even, like nonstop when they were at home, because they didn't have like this stop. Like there wasn't a break in the day, and they would just
Keep going.
especially if you're working with Asia,
Go,
it's
go,
like
go, go, go.
you're
Go,
just
go,
like
go.
doing everything all the time. So I think, I'm speaking from a little bit of old job, and I blended in a new job. I saw people do amazing things during COVID. Things that there was so much teamwork, and there was a lot of risk taking during COVID because nobody had seen it before, and so every idea was a good idea because nobody had lived it. And I think that was one of the cool things about an organization, that when people are telling people to take more risk, and it's like it's a tagline, but when you actually have to do it, and there's this, every single person is equal because everybody's like at home looking in a monitor, there's no power or anything, and then there's this, nobody, even the most seasoned employee could not say that's a bad idea, because everybody was like, we're out of ideas, let's just try it, right? So the innovation was through the roof to me during COVID, because we were trying to do so many things to fill gaps that we had never seen before. And then we were home, and coming back in the hybrid, it was a little, I'd say, rocky, because you were kind of used to everybody being on screen, and now you had like 4 people in the office and 2 people on screen, and so we've gotten better at that. But that was a dip, I think, just in terms of, now you had people in the circle and out of the circle for a little while, but I think we've managed to do that now. We have a hybrid work environment, so we're in the office 3 days a week, and work from home. You can be in the office every day if you want. Depends on your job. Sometimes you may have to do that. Like, let me get a qualifier out here to make sure. If depending on your job, you can do 3 days in the office, and 3 days at home. Work from home for 3 days. 2 days, or it would be all days, 5 days in the office. And I think that's working well for us. It's I think people like managing their life around that. They're still on all the time, meaning phones and those kinds of things. So
Right.
I think post COVID, people are accessible. They may not be in your face, but they are available. And I think that's the thing that's changed. I think the other thing that changed is assignments, like clarity on what you need, because somebody's not. You can't just keep going back and forth to the desk to ask them something. So I think the the crispness of what we are asking people to do, and the timeline, because
Mhm.
that matters too, because some people get a chat, or, because you're chatting, your phone's ring, what do you call it, you got your iPhone going, you got the Teams chat, you got all this kind of stuff. So helping people understand, this is not urgent, I just got a question, get to it when you can. So I think that what we ask people and the timeline matters more now, because if you don't, people will just like be panicked all day long that somebody needs something, because they're getting dinged all day long. So you have to
Right.
really put a qualifier in there and help people prioritize. If you don't, they kind of think you're crazy. So yeah.
Thank you.
So there's another question in the comments. How do you bounce back in your career after being downsized?
Ooh, that's so we just went through a restructuring, actually, last, maybe in March or so, something like that. And it's been, I think I'm going to answer it in a way from what I've observed, from people who left, on our program. We tried to do it as respectfully as possible. It's a terrible situation. Try to do it as respectfully as possible. What I've seen is a lot of people either switching careers, doing something that maybe that they, could have been close to what they were doing, but something they've always, wanted to do, and taken that opportunity to go do something different, or just really networked, like crazy, and um, it's taken a little bit of time, but be able to bounce back and be in a similar position. So I think it's a matter of keeping the networks strong. I've had people reach out to me that have not, they weren't, but they left the company a couple of years ago. So they're just, hey, just want to talk to you, see what's out there, see, I want to bounce this off of you. So I think networking is, I don't mean network, I mean, networking with a purpose is what I would call it, making sure that you keep your connection strong with people, so that as they see things that you might fit, even though it's not exactly what you were doing, because again, I think it's where you start, but you've accumulated all these skills, maybe that you don't call them out, but you have them, that somebody can say, okay, these skills might be used over here. So I say continue the networking. Um, Make sure you give yourself all the credit that you deserve on a resume. A lot of people, myself, you do a lot of things, right? And you don't think about it, but take the time to inventory what you have accomplished, and don't be, it's not bragging, but think about and be proud of what you've done there, because I think all of us just do stuff, and it doesn't even, we don't think about it. But I recently had to do a resume, and it was amazing when I actually sat down and thought about it. It was a process longer than I thought it than I would have thought. But it really makes you think about all the things you've done. So you've probably done more in your career than your job title. So take that time to put all of that down, and then just, I'd say, network and keep. I'd say LinkedIn is very active right now, and it's always good for me to see somebody bounce back from a restructuring, because they're good people. It was literally almost always the business need.
Tanya, I have a question. So again, you started off at Lexmark, kind of in the supply chain and kind of, some of the
Hmm.
product development, right? You were dealing with the stuff,
The stuff.
right? Now
And
you're
how did I get to the people?
now you're on the people side.
How do you go from the
And
stuff to the
and
people?
in that people side, you know what I'm saying? The stuff, I tell people, you can take the stuff and you can move it around, you can
Yep.
configure it different ways, and it's like cool. People, it's kind of like, why are you moving me? Why are you configuring me? Why are you doing this? Like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So you've gone from an area that's kind of, you can program it, you can configure
Hmm.
it, to
Yep.
something over here that's it has a lot more to it, right? So share anything you can share about what that transition has been like.
Um, you know, I'm gonna I'm gonna add on to what you said just a little bit. Even though you're in an area where stuff is people making stuff, people doing
Mm,
stuff. So to me, one of the reasons that I landed in HR is my boss was really he wanted our head of HR retired, and it's an outstanding HR team, but he wanted someone from the business to come kind of build a bridge between HR and the
mm,
business.
mm,
And so that's been fun. It's been different, very different, totally different set of people to work with. Um, but I think the thing that's consistent is people. Now,
mm,
like what you're doing and how you're trying to make an impact, very different for sure. But I think even though I think one of the when people forget that it's people doing the stuff is when you have
mm,
that's when you've got some ground to cover. But I think having been in the business, working with people in the business now, it's just a little bit different. And I think um, you know people talk to me just like they would if I weren't in HR. So there's not this guard or this well let me see how I'm going to say this and all those kinds of things. So I think that's been kind of cool for me. It's just been interesting learning. What I like to tell the team is how the intention, what HR's intention was, because when you're in the business, you may have a reaction, let's say, and you're like, well, what is that about? And it's not that they didn't say it; it's just you were just busy doing something else. And so, what I'm trying to work with the team here is I'm making sure that the business understands the intention. Like, what do we
mm.
what do we intend to do, and then we can work there to make it a successful program and those kinds of things.
That's great. Kudos to you for. 'Cause I know that's a challenging transition to go from being kind of technical and dealing, like Ted said, the stuff to really now being a people person. And I know that a lot of people struggle with that. But I mean, kudos to you for having the adaptability to
Well, I'm still working
adjust.
on it. I'm still working on it.
It's still a
I
work in
wouldn't say
progress.
I wouldn't say I'm done. I'm a work in progress. Yeah, I think the team would agree with that. I'm a work in progress. It's really cool that we're so different. I think that's what's it's always interesting to me to work and we use diversity, we throw it around a lot, but it's also, I mean, there's race, there's gender, but there's literally like people are just wired differently, and people
Mhm.
work differently. And I think that's one of the things that I've enjoyed over my career, is always working with different people.
I think that was just an amazing idea to take someone from that business side and put into that HR side, right? To just to be able to really bridge that gap, like you said, because that's really important. It's really
Yeah, I've known
important.
him. We grew up in the company together, and I'm like, okay, I am who I am, right? This kind of thing, and it's been good because I do know a lot of I do understand a lot about the business. Certainly, I know a lot of people, but beyond that, you can kind of understand what things are gonna be well received and things that
Yeah,
you're gonna need a little work with to get people there.
it's
For
great.
sure.
Thank you.
So we're at this is Ted's favorite part of the show, Tanya. It's called Write This Down.
Oh
And
my
this is
God.
where we each go around and leave at least one takeaway from today's episode that we want the people to remember, to write down so they can level up. So Tanya, you are our guest of honor.
I have
What,
to go
what,
first.
you
You
got to
gotta
go
go.
first.
You gotta
So,
go
so
first.
so what do the people need to write down based off of today's episode?
Hmm. It's gonna be willing from a as in order to grow and in order to add value, either one. I think we all have um, to seek new opportunities, to seek change, and be willing to be vulnerable to that, to learn something new, and accept. And I think we have to do two things. We have to accept that we're not going to be as good at something new as we were, that's what we're doing. That's a yeah, no kidding. But that's a hard thing for people to accept if they've been really successful at what they're doing. So I think we have to be willing to say, this is going to be hard for a little while and I'm going to catch up. And the other thing is, the second side of that coin is we have to give ourselves grace, because I think we're all high achieving people and those kinds of things, and we have to take a step back and laugh at ourselves and say, well, that was a hot mess, but I'm going to figure it out again. I'm going to get back up and I'm going to do it again. So I think for me, and it's being uncomfortable, and I don't mean like being in a bad situation. I mean, like being in a strange situation with somebody. I mean, just like actually picking up and leaving, and continuing to leaving your comfort zone, learning something new, fighting through the fear of that. I like to tell people it's a tightrope with me when I'm starting a new job. Is I'm super excited and scared to death, and I toggle that line. When I do that, I'm good. If it's not that, then it's probably not a big enough stretch for me.
Wow, super excited and scared. That sounds a lot like entrepreneurship.
Right. That's right.
No, that's awesome. Hopefully the people wrote that down.
That wasn't one thought. I rambled a bit there, so maybe y'all can cut that
No, I
out.
think you
But
did
anyway,
great. I think you did great, Tonya. This is why this is not my favorite part of the show. Eric says that all the time because there's a guest like you that's been just dropping all these boulders of information and wisdom throughout, and then I have to follow it, right? So, my kind of takeaway is, you just hear that, cliche all the time that it's not it's not really the work, it's the people, right? The work is
yeah,
easy, right? It's that people part, right? And
it's the
and
people.
and you had and just like you said, it's just people and collaboration. And it was interesting. I had this leadership summit years ago, and the person that was presenting, he had this one slide, and it had all these different faces on it: sad, confused, anxious, like all these different faces. And he was like, yeah, so this is what you're dealing with every day, right? Like all these different faces, all these different
Yep.
things that people are going through, and you're wondering why, certain things are going a certain way, whether it's, not so well or whatever. And it's like, you're just thinking, okay, Eric just doesn't want to do this,
Right.
right? But you don't know what
You
Eric
don't know
is
what Eric's going
experienced
through.
someplace
Right.
else. Even when you talked about the whole thing about, we talked about the new um, generation of workforce, and then the season, right? Is the season thinking they're coming to get me out, right? They're coming to take my
Mm-hmm.
job versus this could be a mentoring situation,
Mm-hmm.
right? We talked about the AI part, right? Hey, you're bringing in AI. Is this a way to bring in some efficiencies, or is this a way, to move me out? And that's all parts of the, you know, people, the people part. I even think about it, even from some of the simplest forms of, when you go to the grocery store now and they have everything, I am not the person that wants to get in a line, right? I mean, or go in there and check myself in, because no. I'm not trying to do that, Tanya.
Oh, you want a cashier? You want
Yeah. And
okay.
where's the cashier? Why you only have one line with one cashier, but all these other automated things kind of going on? Where I got to check myself out, right? But I mean, but yeah, it's all about the people, and if the culture and those things, if you
It
can,
is.
the people can feel that you care and you're rewarding them and all those good things, then yeah, it can be a great thing.
All right, sure. And so my piece for this segment, to write this down, is sometimes you have to choose the path of most resistance.
Hmm.
That goes against to most people are looking for the path of least resistance. I know, like in the automotive field, some of the best service writers and customer service people were people that came outside of the automotive industry, that literally couldn't change their own oil, knew nothing about cars, but
Hmm.
ended up being some of the best people. Like people that were waitresses, waiters, hostesses, people that did, high straight commission things. They came in and they would have a lot of success. And actually, so if you're hiring people, sometimes it's an advantage to get people who aren't industry veterans
Hmm.
because they bring a new perspective.
They do.
They ask different questions. Like if you're coming from a technical background into people, you're asking different questions than someone
Very
who's been
different
dealing with people
questions.
their entire
Yep.
life. So I
I
think
like that. The
it
path of
goes
most
back to
resistance.
yeah, you got to take the path of most resistance. And when you're looking at this, and that's how you grow too, and that's how you get it. So the first time you get thrown in, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to drown. Then the next time you get another situation, you're like, okay, I can figure this out.
No,
I did that before.
you're exactly right. You feel
Yeah.
like you can be gasping a little bit, but I know I'm not going to
That's
drown.
right. I'm not gonna drown. I'm
I
not
didn't
gonna.
drown last time, so
I
I'm not
didn't
going to drown this
exactly.
time.
I didn't drown last time.
Right?
I know
I'm
how to
still
do
here
this. I know how to do this.
for sure. All right. Well, good stuff. This has been a fantastic episode. Thank you, Tonya
Thank
Jackson, for
you.
everything that you've shared. If people want to reach out to you and connect with you, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
To a couple ways. I mean, I've given my Lexmark email out before. I'm happy to do that again, or you can use LinkedIn. But my Lexmark email is Tonya Tonya.Jackson@lexmark.com.
All right. Fantastic. All right. Well, this concludes this episode of the 30-Minute Hour podcast. Thank you again, Tonya Jackson,
Thank you, sir.
for
Thank you,
everything that
Ted.
you have shared. And for those of you watching, don't forget to share the show.
Share the show. Share
That's
the
right.
show.
Share the show.
Yo.
Right.
Yeah,
And don't
okay.
forget also you can find us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Make sure you hit subscribe or follow. That way you never miss an episode. That's our time for this week. And until next time, have a great one.
Thank you all.